Wasn't combat. It was exploration. Match type, regional survey. Objective, identify and map 6 major landmarks, including terrain boundaries, path networks, native flora, and animal migration. Target, 61% mapped for visibility unlock. Okay, so as long as I see them as a team, like Sleeping Beauty and Prince Charming, or siblings, then that's what I get in the arena. He scrolled through the summon menu, flipping past obvious names. He crossed out Marco Polo, too solitary, too self-important. This wasn't a solo mission, it was collaboration. Then he smiled. 2 names glowed back from the Earth archives, names bound together by story, myth, and historical grit. Yeah, 2 people who are literally built for this. Let's bring in Lewis and Clark. Summon flare. The arena pulses. Fog begins rolling in from the edge of the region. It spills over cliffs, winds through valleys. Visibility drops to near 0. The air shifted. It smelled like pine, damp earth, wind over water. Somewhere ahead, rivers cut through jungle and plateau. Plant life buzzed with motion. Strange bird calls echoed in the distance. But almost everything was hidden, blurred by the heavy white fog that clung to the map and the land itself. And then, footsteps. 2 figures emerged from the summoning gate. One wore expedition leathers, broad-shouldered, carrying a rifle with a spyglass tied to the strap. The other had a satchel heavy with maps and ink-stained fingers, already sketching in a notebook as they walked. They didn't say a word. They didn't need to. They looked at each other, nodded once, and stepped forward into the mist. Progress, 1.4%. Eric was still on his winning streak, still buzzing from the peppermint chaos of kids shaking a dragon out of hibernation, still watching Lewis and Clark steadily push back the fog across the map, marking animal trails, carving paths between biomes, etching details with surgical focus. They were at 12.6% now. Why stop at 2? His finger hovered over the summon interface. 3 silhouettes blinked back at him. He clicked without hesitation. 3 sets of eyes. Let's see what this crew can really do. But the moment he confirmed, something changed. The viewing screen warped, the fog rolled in, and suddenly, he wasn't watching anymore. He was there. The jungle presses close. Humid air, birdsong, distant rustling. Eric stumbles forward through thick leaves, blinking. Whoa, hold on. I was just spectating. Somewhere overhead. Correction, Earth has joined the survey match. Contestant will remain until completion. Challenge, regional survey, real-time expedition. Goal, map 61% of landmass, rivers, biomes, flora, fauna, and shape geometry. Match duration, indefinite. Note, external viewing is accelerated for broadcast purposes. Field participants experience time naturally. Oh, that 18 minutes of progress he'd watched from above? That had been the entire first day. Sundown. Then back up. All of it sped up for the crowd. But not for him. Now it was real. Now it was long. Saw footsteps approach. Lewis. You volunteered. Without looking up. Didn't expect you to. But we could use a 3rd set of eyes. Yeah. Guess we're teammates now. They didn't slow down. They handed him a sketch pad, a field pack, and pointed east. The fog clung thick to the horizon, but it shifted slightly as they walked, lifting just enough to hint at the shape of mountains in the distance. A crater lake. The rustle of something big moving just out of sight. 3 people. 1 map. No fast forward. No escape until they hit 61%. Steps into the region were swallowed in green. The trees were tall. Taller than anything Eric had ever seen. Not just rainforest tall. Not redwood tall. These giants loomed like skyscrapers grown from soil, their trunks vanishing into a ceiling of leaves that blocked out the sun completely. It wasn't metaphorical. It was literal. The entire forest was in shadow, and worse, the map was useless. Just a gray blur. Fogged. Eric. I thought the fog was just a visual metaphor. It wasn't. The fog on the map matched the fog on the ground. Thick. White. Drifting around the tree bases like breath in cold air. As they took notes, the fog began to react, visibly clearing from their local map interface. But progress was slow. Every detail mattered. Types of bark, shapes of leaves, the way light hit the moss. It wasn't just about walking through a space, it was about knowing it. And then there was the X, marked faintly on their shared map, but slippery. The closer they got, the more it seemed to slide, as if the system didn't want to fully confirm its location until they earned it. It's moving, or we're not seeing it right. Or it only stops moving once it's been described. Eventually, the X led them to what could only be called a landmark, a woven network of trees, spiraled and fused, forming a kind of structure. It rose as high as a small mountain. Twisting roots and branches connected to form natural steps, ropes, ledges. And climbing it wasn't optional. They had to camp halfway up in the crook of a root the size of a cabin, sleep suspended above the fog, still unsure how much was left to chart. The next morning they climbed higher, past nests, past vines. The air got clearer, the light sharper. At the top, resting in the crook of a massive forked branch, they found it, a bird's nest the size of a fishing boat. In it, beside the twigs and bright alien feathers, was a small observation disc, a lens. It's an aerial viewer. They tilted it upward. It flashed once, then swept the canopy, sending ripples across the map as the entire region rendered at once. Paths appeared, water trails, the full layout of the forest floor. Region, deep canopy basin. Survey completion, 63%. Landmark verified, nest of the canopy watchers. One down. And they still had miles of fog ahead. The second region didn't announce itself with noise or movement, just absence. A black mark in the distance, so wide it looked like someone had erased part of the mountain range. That's not a cave. That's a hole in the world. The entrance was massive, grand caped like a tunnel. Not carved, not collapsed, bored. Something once went through here with purpose. They crossed a ridge to reach it, and even from half a mile out, the scale made them feel small. By the time they stepped inside, the outside world was already gone. No echo, just cool air, damp stone, and a faint, persistent glow. It wasn't sunlight. There wasn't a drop of that left. The cave had its own light system, a full UV spectrum world. Moss glowed blue around the edges of boulders. Thin neon worms curled against the walls, pulsing softly like heartbeat patterns. And all around them, small, sleek animals with long whiskers scurried just out of reach, navigating not with eyes, but touch. Everything here's made to feel its way forward. Even the bats are wrong. Look. Above, things flitted, silent, soft-bodied, almost like bats, but their wings refracted light into nothing, UV camouflage. They flickered in and out of sight like static behind glass. The deeper they went, the fewer animals they saw. Even the glowing worms curled tighter. Even the moss turned pale. Feels like we're not supposed to be down here. Then the sound changed. They didn't hear it. They felt it. A slow, steady thrum. The sound of falling water, but not crashing. Not chaotic. They turned a bend and saw it. Landmark 2. A thin, elegant waterfall, cascading from a ledge high above. But instead of mist and rainbow, the pool below glowed purple, lit by thousands of jellyfish-like creatures drifting in the water. They weren't swimming. They were holding still, like they'd been waiting. Their soft glow illuminated the cave like lanterns hung from memory. Region, Hollow Range. Landmark verified, the Stillwater Fall. Survey completion, 4%. No one spoke. Even Eric, still buzzing with energy from the dragon match just a day before, stood silent, staring at the glow. Then finally, all right, let's go find 35. By the time they reached the next region, the ground had flattened. The jungle thinned. The trees twisted low to the ground as if ducking beneath some unseen threat. The air was sharp. Not sulfuric, but wrong. Acidic enough that Eric started covering his mouth with his shirt. Then they saw it. A massive lake, wide, quiet, still. The surface gleamed with a pale yellow tint like someone had poured oil over metal. That water doesn't look swimmable. PH is, yeah, don't touch it. Don't even look too long. The lake wasn't boiling. It wasn't bubbling. It just waited. Still, unmoving. And past the far shore, barely visible through the haze, was another structure. A platform. A distant marker glowing faintly red. So we need a boat. We have a boat, but it's untreated. Clark, running her fingers along the hull, the acid would eat through it halfway across. That was when they noticed the beetles. Big ones. The size of dinner plates. Dark, domed shells that shimmered green-blue. They scuttled in clusters near the water's edge, dipping into pools, then retreating as if on schedule. None of them seemed bothered by the acid. Their shells are hydrophobic, layered. Looks like chitin fused with calcium weave, already pulling a specimen. And if we line the canoe with them... Eric, we get a bioshield boat. An hour later, the canoe was covered, beetle shells layered and sealed with tree resin, stitched into place with rope made from local vine. It wasn't pretty, but it floated, and it held. Crossing the lake took time. The air was heavy, the smell of rust and wet ash clung to everything. Small hisses echoed as droplets hit the surface, but the boat didn't melt, didn't sink, just slid silently forward. When they reached the far platform, the air cleared. And behind the red marker was a tall pole with a carved disc. It spun slowly in the wind, reflecting the entire lake surface in fragments. Region Glass Acid Flats. Landmark verified shell crossing point. Survey completion 47%. You two are terrifying. We're explorers. And your canoe's still ugly. The terrain shifted again. Jungle gave way to cliffs, then cliffs gave way to snow. Fine, dry powder blanketed everything, and the air turned clean in that sharp, hollow way only deep cold can bring. The trees were gone now, wreathed by ice-crusted spines of rock, wind-carved arches, animal tracks. Lewis pulled his coat tighter. Clark muttered something about frost forming on her pen. Eric shoved his hands in his sleeves. Could have sent the Christmas kids here. They'd stay warm. They spotted movement on a nearby ridge. First one, then two, then half a dozen. Large, pale shapes crawling low to the ground. Centipedes, massive ones. Segmented, armored, low-slung like someone stitched a bus and a snowplow together. But they weren't fighting. They weren't even hunting. They were watching. Lewis. They're competing. No weapons, no venom, just pulling. Sure enough, one centipede had a log strapped to its back, dragging it across a frozen field while the others watched in a wide circle. It wasn't a kill. It was display. It's dominance. Whoever pulls the heaviest load gets priority in the herd. Okay, so to catch the biggest one, Lewis, we pull better. They fashioned a crude sled using their supply crates, some rope, and a stone marker from the last region. Eric volunteered. Of course he did. He grabbed the rope, squared his stance, and pulled 3 meters. 6. By the time he hit 10, the centipedes were watching again. One stepped forward, massive, scarred, legs clicking like clockwork. It lowered its body beside the sled and waited. Is this real life? Did I just alpha a snowbug? With Lewis and Clark's guidance, they tethered it, gently. It didn't resist. It pulled the sled twice the distance, and every other centipede backed away into the snow. At the far side of the field was a frozen altar, etched with symbols that looked like spirals inside teeth. When the centipede reached it, the altar pulsed once, recognizing the offering. Region Frost Halo Expanse. Landmark verified, dominance trial grounds, survey completion 56%.